Let's go.
Hello, YouTube. We're back here. It's been a little while. I was putting out a couple videos a week before. Now I'm only able to do them once a week. The reason for that is I'm in school. I'm going to college. I am taking a law enforcement fundamentals course, which kind of pertains to the kind of videos that I do when talking about sovereign citizens. But of course, I live in Canada, so I'm learning Canadian law. And it is different than American law. The main differences are procedural, whereas most of our actual laws are the same, or at least very similar. Maybe the wording's different, but essentially they are very similar to what the U.S. goes through or what the U.S. has in place. So anyway, we're back here with James, and he has some very interesting ideas about what a sovereign citizen is and how it pertains to diplomatic immunity. He implies, though never comes out and says it throughout the entire video, that in order for these kinds of things to apply, or this loophole to apply, you have to be a U.S. national. Now, if you've watched my videos in the past, you know that there is no difference legally between a U.S. citizen and a U.S. national. They are the same thing under the law. All U.S. citizens are U.S. nationals, but not all U.S. nationals are U.S. citizens, because the only time it does not apply is if you were born or a resident of American Samoa or Swains Island. He chooses to ignore that fact. I don't know why, but it is very clear. If you looked up the definition of a U.S. national, that it only applies to people born or occupying Swains Island or American Samoa. But let's give him the benefit of the doubt and hear him out, and let's hear what he has to say.
Hello, YouTubers. What's up? It's your boy, the Bad Wolf. So, you may not know all of your rights and protections. What am I talking about? All right, well, two people want to call yourselves the sovereigns, huh? Okay. Well, let me explain something to you.
Thank you, Scarface. That was a horrible impression.
This is what you need to look up. Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act. 28 USC 1603-1611 and 28 U.S. Code 1604, immunity of a foreign state from jurisdiction. What are these? Okay.
Yes, what are these? I have looked up these references, and I will put them in. I will put the links in the description, and you can certainly follow. You can certainly read up on what it has to say there. Just remember to take everything he says with a grain of salt, because frankly, it's bizarre. Keep in mind that you have to assume that you are a sovereign citizen, which you cannot be. There is no sovereign citizen. There is no legal standing for a sovereign citizen under the U.S. law, under the U.S. Constitution. It simply doesn't exist. But anyway, let's humor him and listen to what this guy says.
These are the laws that were put in place that protect people who are foreign nationals. And that's what you are. I know it.
No, you're a U.S. citizen. Everybody's a U.S. citizen. It's not a choice. Well, technically, it is. You can revoke your U.S. citizenship. I have seen people do that. Of course, the ironic thing is, the U.S. government doesn't really like having non-citizens live in its borders. If you're not a landed immigrant, permanent resident, victim of, if you've seeked asylum in some way, like a political refugee, that kind of thing. If you're just a non-citizen, you're technically an alien, which means that you would be deported. So really, really think about what he's saying. Because if you're not a U.S. citizen, if you revoke your U.S. citizenship to become a sovereign citizen or a U.S. national, you are essentially giving up your right to live in the United States. So take that into consideration.
It sounds weird because you consider yourself just to be a U.S. citizen, and you are, but you're also a state citizen or a U.S. national. But if you don't know...
State citizen, I have no idea what that is. I was unable to find anything that has to do with state citizen.
You don't act on it, you don't declare it, you don't identify yourselves to the nice officer who took his time to turn on his emergency lights when there was no emergency, which is to identify himself and to make sure you were good properly, then he's going to assume you're just a sheeple. Okay? So what this does, these acts, so you're going to have to look them up yourselves, both of those. Rewind the videos.
James, people come to you for information. Yes, you give the information, but you rely too much on your viewer. The reviewer has to do too much work. For instance, you have 2 computers behind you. 2. That's more than enough computing power to get a cheap video editing software and put your videos together properly. I mean, come on, it's 2021, almost 2022 now, and you're still relying on your viewer to do all the work. It's not necessary. It's so much easier. It's so easy to do it the proper way, to actually do it the professional way, to give yourself some credibility. But you choose not to.
And get those codes again, and we'll look them up, okay? When you do this, it's going to tell you that there are clear jurisdictional lines that cannot be broken without fines, without jail time, without criminal complaints in court, because you are outside of their jurisdiction. Okay, they themselves are in a foreign jurisdiction. Most of these courts and constables and enforcement people, and they don't even know it. And even if they do know it, they just know that if you act like a citizen, talk like a citizen, and walk like a citizen, then they have jurisdiction over you. Until you bring up this. Okay, so
there is no until or if or there is no until. You're a U.S. citizen. Period, until you give that up, in which case you give up your right to live in the United States and you have to go somewhere else. So it's all nonsense, absolute nonsense.
So if you properly identify yourself, you have the identification and you have those codes, okay? They're unless you are doing something to pull you into their jurisdiction, that's it, okay? So, let's see here. All right. So, let's see what the official Law Cornell EDU page has to say about it. Okay, so this says.
So he's talking about a Cornell.edu, which is a law school. That's fine. But I was actually able to get some information from the government, from the actual people who make these laws or make these policies, and I'll put the links in the description. But Cornell, although it's a good law school, they don't make the law. They just teach other people how to interpret the law and what those laws mean. So there are better sources, that's all I'm saying.
Immunity of a foreign state from jurisdiction, subject to existing international agreements to the United States as a party at the time of the enactment of this act. A foreign state shall be immune from jurisdiction of the courts of the United States of America and of the states. Notice there's 2 things there. Okay. Except
that's meaningless, whether it's the United States or a state. it makes absolutely no difference.
As provided in sections 1605 to 1607. And of course, you can go down, or actually, you can just click these links here to go there so you can have further understanding. So right there, it says a foreign state. So if you're declaring yourself, or you've been declared a foreign state,
you're not a foreign state. No matter what you do, you're not a foreign state. Now, in the past, I have said that I have heard of individuals seceding from the United States. I did some more research, and apparently that's wrong. No individual has seceded from the United States. No matter what kind of paperwork you file or you think you're filing with municipal, state, or federal government, it's meaningless. Do you know what they do when they receive these things, these sovereign citizens revoking their United States citizenship? You know what they do with them? Unless it's done properly, of course. They throw it in the trash. It's garbage. It's meaningless. You cannot secede. I have not been able to find anybody, any proof that an individual has seceded from the United States, and planting a flag or some kind of sign on your property is not the same thing.
You're immune from jurisdiction, from these courts. It says it right here.
If you are a foreign entity, if you're a foreign state, like France, like England, like Canada, those are foreign states. An individual cannot be a foreign state. The Constitution doesn't allow for it.
Now, I'm not saying just copy the code and keep it in your car and run around on this, because you have to back up that information.
No, you don't. You cannot debate law with a police officer. That's why sovereign citizens who choose to not put license plates on their cars, or choose not to carry their car registration or driver's license, you cannot argue the law with a police officer. They don't care. They are only there to enforce the law as it is written. Okay? That is what their that is their number one job, is to enforce the law as it is written. If you do not want to follow those laws as they are written, then your arena for debate is a court of law, not with a police officer. But please, by all means, keep doing it, because it provides hours of entertainment for everybody on the internet.
Okay? You have to be able to prove it. Downloading some information and just trying to act outside of the law is going to get you want. Okay? Because you're probably still a U.S. citizen, because you've pledged your allegiance to them, you've got your contracts, you got your car all in their name and all this other stuff.
In their name, James? I'm pretty sure obviously I'm Canadian, so I'm going to speak as a Canadian. When I register my car, it's registered with the province that I live in, because it has to be, the province has to have confidence that I have insurance or something to that effect. I'm not a lawyer. But anyway, I register my vehicle with the province so that they know that the car exists and who it belongs to. So that if, say, I get into an accident, if I don't have insurance, they can say, okay, well, this car with this license plate number got into an accident. Oh, well, they don't have insurance. I guess they're liable for the whole thing. Whatever. Again, I'm not a lawyer. But his argument is just so ridiculous.
And your plates and your driver's license. So if you have done these things, this is not going to help you. Okay? You can't just wear all their stuff, break the law or whatever you're doing, and then hold us up. It's my get out of jail card free. Yay!
Get out of jail card free? I think you mean get out of jail free card. I think so.
No, it doesn't work that way. Okay? Because you're wearing everything that says, I'm a sheep, or excuse me, a citizen. So, yeah. Now.
Huh? So sovereign citizens have their own wardrobe? Is there a uniform? I really like to see it. Can somebody find me a picture of the sovereign citizen uniform? That would be great. Thank you.
If you did everything right with your vehicle, you got your information card, your passport as declared by the Department of State as a U.S. national, foreign state, good job. Then that's different. Now you can walk both worlds, but not at the same time, okay? Because if you have a shred of any of their stuff, they're going to use that to pull you into their jurisdiction. And
the jurisdiction argument. Yes. We all know the jurisdiction argument. If you're occupying physical space within the United States, you are subject to their laws. Period. End of story. Just like in Canada, if you are occupying physical space within Canadian borders, you are subject to Canadian law. That's the way it works. That's the way it is. Unless you have diplomatic immunity, which James talked about, which is conditional. There are certain things that diplomats are immune from, but they're usually minor offenses like speeding or running a red light, something like that. They're usually immune to prosecution for things that in their home country would not be criminal. That's the thing. Okay, that's what they're immune from. And if that were the case, then generally the Canadian government would take the position of, well, fine, you're just not allowed back in our borders. Okay, they deport them, they expel them from the country, and that's how it works. If they do that. But what James is talking about means absolutely nothing.
And you're going to get what you got coming. Okay, so know how to walk, what to say at the right times. Okay, so we're going to check out the other one here. All right, so a foreign state we're talking about, right? A foreign state, except as used in section 1608 in this title, includes a political subdivision of a foreign state or an agency or an instrumentality of a foreign state.
So a foreign state, like I said before, is a foreign country. Like France, England, Canada, Mexico. Those are foreign states. So if you are an agent or work for an agency operating in a foreign country, then you are a foreign national and there may be diplomatic immunities that you're entitled to. But what James is talking about is U.S. citizens becoming foreign nationals independent of the United States, and it just doesn't work that way. None of this works this way.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
You can't just say that you've done these things and it's all fine and dandy. It's all done. It doesn't work this way.
Define subsection B. So what does all that mean, right? Let's just get to it. Okay, so this can mean 1, a separate legal person. There you go.
Of a foreign state. He's talking about foreign nationals. If you are a separate legal person of a foreign state, then this applies. American citizens don't have this right. They're not subject to these conditions because they're U.S. citizens, not U.S. national, or not foreign nationals. Because there's no such thing as a U.S. national. All U.S. citizens are U.S. nationals.
Went for the shot. It can also
Congratulations,
be corporate. You can have
James.
a corporate foreign state. Otherwise, it can mean, which is an organ of a foreign state or political subdivision thereof, a majority of whose shares, ownership, or interest is owned by a foreign state or political subdivision thereof. Which, now here's the part, okay? Which is neither a citizen of the state of the United States, as defined in section 1332, blah, 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 blah. Okay, So what that means is that a U.S. citizen is not this doesn't apply to you. Okay, so if you're going around with citizen gear on, with your new citizen Nikes on and citizen shirt and citizen drawers and all that stuff, you can't claim this because you're not a foreign state.
Neither are you, James.
Okay, so you don't get the immunity. You don't get all that stuff. Okay, you're not. You're inside with them. Okay. So let's go on a little bit further. The United States includes all the territories and waters, continental and insular, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Okay, so if you're in the United States, you're in any of those areas and that are theirs, owned by the United States, which is what? Washington, D.C., Guam, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands. They're basically saying that you're in or under their jurisdiction. Okay?
American Samoa, Swains Island, those are the only two places that apply. Well, not to what he's talking about. He's talking about diplomatic communities. But when you're talking about U.S. nationals, those are the only two places, Swains Island or American Samoa. Those are the only two places that it applies. Period. End of story.
Let's see what else. This kind of goes off topic, I guess, a little bit, but bear with me. Commercial activity means either a regular course of commercial conduct or a particular...
Right. So he talks about, commercial and private and stuff like that, which is a common argument for sovereign citizens that they are not in commerce when they are traveling in their car, which of course is ridiculous because if you're using public roads, then the state has a right to make sure that the people who use public roads are licensed, have their car registered, and have that car insured. That's it. That's all. I don't understand what he's getting at. It's just absolute nonsense because what he's talking about is not applied in the way that he thinks it is. But yeah, that's James for you. Like, don't take this guy's word for it. He is not a lawyer. He has no idea what he's talking about. He is making assumptions that just don't exist.